There once was a young man named David who lived in a fast-moving city where every moment seemed fueled by likes, clicks, and constant rewards. He was ambitious but restless. Every time he felt discomfort, he reached for something to numb it. A sugary snack, a scroll through social media, another episode, another distraction. Success felt like something he deserved now, not something he had to earn. He told himself, if it doesn't come quickly, maybe it's not for me. But deep down, David was empty. The victories he chased came fast and disappeared even faster. And one day, sitting alone in his small apartment after another impulsive weekend of indulgence, he asked himself, why does it feel like I'm always full, but never satisfied? Rohn once said, we must all suffer one of two things, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. David had chosen the easy pain his whole life. Instant pleasure, immediate gratification. But now he was beginning to understand that every shortcut came with a cost. He remembered when he had dreams. Big ones. A business he wanted to start. A body he wanted to sculpt. A life he wanted to live with fire and purpose. But he had traded those dreams away for comfort, not realizing he was renting pleasure at the price of his potential. Regret had arrived like a thief in the night, not stealing from him, but showing him what he had given away for nothing. So David made a choice. He decided to become a different man. Not overnight, with fanfare, but with quiet daily action. He deleted the apps that stole his focus. He set his alarm for 5 a.m. The next morning and actually got up. Not because it felt good, but because he knew growth was supposed to feel uncomfortable. He didn't go out drinking that Friday night. Instead, he read for an hour and wrote out his goals. He knew nobody would applaud these small victories, but he also knew nobody would stop him. For the first time, David felt something deeper than pleasure. He felt pride. As the days turned into weeks, David discovered something profound. Discipline as a form of self-love. Not the soft, pampering kind, but the hard, sacrificial kind. The kind that says, I love myself too much to be average. Every time he resisted the urge to indulge in the now. He invested in the man he wanted to become. He began to build something no algorithm could give him, character. And as his discipline grew, so did his confidence. He no longer needed praise or permission. He became his own source of strength. Rohn taught that success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines, practiced every day. David started keeping promises to himself. He didn't try to change everything overnight. He just stayed consistent. He traded Netflix for knowledge. He replaced fast food with fuel. He replaced scrolling with strategy. And slowly, the future he had once only dreamed about began to take shape. His body transformed. His mindset sharpened. His business plan became a real company. And for the first time in his life, he didn't just feel good. He felt powerful. But the old world kept calling. The temptations didn't disappear, they evolved. The whispers of, take it easy, and you've earned a break, returned. But David had changed. He no longer fell for cheap comforts. He had tasted the reward of delayed gratification, and it was richer than any momentary thrill. He realizing, the life most people want is on the other side of the pain they're unwilling to endure. And while others were seduced by the immediate, David kept his eyes on the ultimate. There were setbacks, of course. There were days he wanted to quit. Days when results didn't come fast enough. But now he understood what Rohn meant when he said, don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. David didn't wish away the struggle. He welcomed it, because he saw it as proof that he was growing. Every obstacle became a mirror, showing him what he still needed to master. And with each challenge, he became more unshakable. His friends began to notice. You've changed, they said. He smiled, because he had. He no longer chased dopamine, he chased destiny. And that shift made all the difference. He had become a man who could delay the easy for the meaningful. A man who could stare down comfort and choose greatness instead. He had learned that true fulfillment is not found in the now. It's found in who you become when you refuse to settle for less. The truth about instant gratification is that it steals from the future to feed the present. But discipline builds the future, one uncomfortable choice at a time. David's story is not unique. It's a mirror for all of us. Because every day we face the same question, will I feed the moment or will I feed the mission? One gives you pleasure. The other gives you power. One fades. The other compounds, Jim Rohn's wisdom lives in this: success is neither magical nor mysterious. It is the natural consequence of consistently applying basic fundamentals. So the next time the easy way whispers your name, remember David. Remember who you could become if you say no to what you want now, and yes to what you want most. Because in the end, the difference between average and extraordinary is found in the choices nobody sees. And those choices, they are made one small moment at a time. Months passed, and David no longer needed to fight the same battles. What once felt impossible had become a habit. What once required willpower now flowed from identity. He had become the kind of man who did the hard things not because he had to, but because it was who he was. And this is where most people misunderstand discipline. They think it's about force. It's not. True discipline is when what you once had to push yourself to do becomes what you're no longer willing to live without. That's when you know you've changed. Not when you do the right thing once, but when doing anything less would feel like a betrayal of who you've become. David began mentoring others, young men who were where he once was, lost, distracted, always chasing comfort. He told them the truth. You're not tired. You're unaligned. You're not lazy. You're uninspired. Stop looking for easier roads. Start becoming a stronger traveler. And when they asked him how he changed, he never said, I got lucky. He said, I got honest with myself. I stopped blaming the world and started building my world. I stopped craving relief and started chasing results. And it wasn't just about business or health. It was about everything. His relationships grew deeper. His patience expanded. He stopped reacting and started responding. Instant gratification is impulsive. It says, now. But David had learned to say, not yet. Not because he was denying himself joy, but because he was choosing a joy that lasted. One built not on the thrill of the moment, but on the meaning of the mission. Jim Rohn used to say, for things to change, you have to change. And David had become the evidence of that truth. His environment hadn't changed. The world hadn't slowed down. The temptations didn't disappear, but he had changed. And when you change, your decisions change. And when your decisions change, your life changes. It's never been about the circumstances. It's always been about the choices. Now, when David looked back at his old self, the version of him who chased every craving, he didn't feel shame. He felt gratitude, because that younger version was the fire that forged his strength. He had to break to build. He had to fall to rise. He had to feel the emptiness of shallow pleasure to understand the richness of delayed victory. And he smiled, because he had lived the truth easy brings regret. Hard brings reward. He often remembered a line he'd once heard from Jim Rohn. Don't just read the easy stuff. You may be entertained by it, but you will never grow from it. And David had stopped living an entertaining life. He chose to live a meaningful one. It wasn't as flashy. It didn't always feel good in the moment, but it made him proud. And that pride, that quiet, unwavering certainty that he was living on purpose, that was worth more than all the quick hits of dopamine in the world. And so, David kept walking the long road. Not alone, but now leading others, building people, teaching discipline, spreading the truth. That success is not a lottery, it's a formula. It's what happens when you trade the cheap thrill of now for the deep fulfillment of later. It's what happens when you stop running from pain and start running toward purpose. It's what happens when you finally understand that greatness isn't something you find. It's something you become, one decision at a time. The world will always offer you shortcuts. It will always whisper, why wait? But if you listen carefully, underneath that noise is a stronger voice. The one that says, you were made for more. And if you can silence the craving long enough to hear that voice, you will step into a power no one can take from you. The power of self-mastery. That's the truth about instant gratification. It feels like freedom, but it's a trap. True freedom is being able to say no to what doesn't serve your highest self. It's waking up every day and knowing I control me. My emotions don't own me. My cravings don't control me. My life is not a series of reactions. It's a symphony of deliberate actions. And each action is a brick. One by one, you are building your legacy. In the end, David didn't need applause. He didn't need likes. His life spoke for him. A life of consistency. A life of substance. A life that was not always easy, but always meaningful. And that, he realized, was the ultimate reward. Not what he got, but who he became. And that is the path available to all of us, right here. Right now, you don't have to wait. You don't need permission. You just need to decide, will I be a slave to the moment or the master of my future? Because in the words of Rohn, either you run the day or the day runs you. Years later, David stood on a stage, no longer the student, but now the mentor. The room was filled with young dreamers, professionals, tired parents, burned out achievers, each one wrestling with their own version of temptation, with their own silent war against distraction, delay, and defeat. He looked into their eyes and saw himself, not the man he was now, but the boy who once wanted everything right away. And he knew what they needed wasn't just information. It was transformation. He didn't talk about tactics first. He talked about truth. Most people, he said, aren't suffering because they're weak. They're suffering because they've never been taught that pleasure is not the same as peace. The room went silent. You can be entertained every day and still feel empty every night. You can have pleasure and still feel like something's missing. And you know what's missing? Discipline, direction, a reason to delay the moment for something that actually matters. He told them about the mornings he didn't want to get up, but did. About the nights he sat in silence, resisting the call of comfort to sit with the discomfort of growth. He told them the greatest myth he ever believed was that life was supposed to feel good all the time. If you're waiting to feel ready, you're already late. If you're waiting until it's easy, you'll never begin. Everything worth having costs something up front. The price is discipline, and the reward is everything else. Rohn once said, "The few who do are the envy of the many who only watch." And David had become one of the few, not because he was gifted, but because he was committed. And in that moment, on that stage, he made a vow to teach others the lesson that changed his life. You can have comfort, or you can have greatness. But you can't have both. He paused. Let the silence breathe. Then he looked into the crowd and said, "Here's what no one told me when I was younger. Every moment you give in to instant gratification. You're saying no to a future you haven't even met yet. But every moment you resist, every time you say not yet, you are casting a vote for the person you want to become." The audience leaned in. Some nodded. Some teared up because they knew he wasn't preaching. He was telling their story, a story they were living, a war they were losing. But now they saw a way out, a reason to fight back. David closed with the words that had once saved him. Discipline is not punishment. It's the highest form of self-respect. It's saying, I care too much about my future to betray it for a moment of ease. He smiled. And that choice, right there, is where everything changes. One moment, one decision, one quiet yes to a greater life. He stepped off the stage, not with fanfare, but with certainty, because the work wasn't finished. It never would be. He knew that even after all this time, he would still face the temptation to take the easy road. But now, he welcomed it. Because each time he resisted, it was a reminder that he was still becoming, that the process was the prize. And so the story continues, not just for David, but for all of us. Because every day is another page, and every choice is another sentence. And you right now are the author of the next chapter. So ask yourself, what kind of life are you writing? Is it one built on fleeting pleasures and wasted time? Or one forged in discipline, sacrifice, and unshakable purpose? The world will keep offering you the shortcut, the dopamine, the distraction. But you, if you're bold enough, can choose something else. You can choose to rise early when the rest sleep in. You can choose to train when others make excuses. You can choose to focus when others scroll. You can choose the life few have by doing what few are willing to do. That is the truth about instant gratification. It is loud, but it is weak. Discipline is quiet, but it is undefeated. And in the end, those who master it will master their life. Time moved on and the world did what the world always does. It kept changing. Technology got faster. Distractions grew louder. Comfort became more convenient. People still chased the shortcut, the hack, the overnight result. But David stayed steady. Not perfect, but anchored. Because the foundation he wasn't made of intensity. It was made of consistency. And that's what most people miss. That greatness is not born in one bold moment. But in 1,000 quiet ones, it's not the breakthrough. It's the repetition. It's brushing your teeth with your non-dominant hand, showing up when no one's watching, saying no to that small compromise that would have been easy to justify. It's boring to the outside world, but inside, it builds something unbreakable. David now understood what Jim Rohn meant when he said, motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going.